All right, I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Monroe County Stormwater Management Board on January 13th, 2021 at 3 p.m. And our first order of business is approval of the minutes for December 9th.
Lee?
Would you like to make a motion?
Lee?
Oh, no, you're right. I'm sorry. No, our first order of business is election of officers.
So do we need to amend the agenda for that or not?
No, let's just move on. Yeah, I don't. Go ahead, Penny.
I was going to say, if we don't need to, I'd like to nominate Lee Jones to continue as the president of the board of the Stormwater, for the Stormwater Board.
Second.
Do we do these separately or can we do both together? Well, we may as well do them separately. This is not something that we take public comment on, is it?
Right.
Okay. Carrie, if you'd please call the roll.
Will. Penny Githens.
Yes.
Julie Thomas.
Yes.
Tron Enright.
Yes.
And Lee, would you like to vote for yourself?
Yeah, I would.
As passed.
And then we need a vice chair, correct?
Yes.
I'll go ahead and nominate Penny Githens as vice chair of the Stormwater Board.
And with a motion and a second, Terry, would you please call the roll?
I will. Lee Jones.
Yes.
Julie Thomas.
Yes.
Tron Enright. Randolph.
Yes.
And Penny Githens, would you like to vote for yourself?
Sure. Yes.
It's approved.
All right. Now we'll move on to approval of the minutes for December 9th.
I have one comment, if I may. Penny submitted a written request for one edit. It was a minor edit in a typo that I forwarded to Donna. I might suggest that you approve them subject to that edit.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? No, I'm sorry. Terry, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Penny Githens.
Yes.
Tron Enright.
Yes.
Lee Jones.
Yes.
And Julie Thomas.
Yes.
The minutes are approved.
All right. Old business now. We have a memo summarizing a suggested fee increase alternatives by Terry Quillman. Terry, would you like to give us more information about this?
Yes, I think there was a request at the last meeting that I try to pull together some of the comments that were made at the last meeting and summarize them. And I tried to pull them together as best I could. They're not ranked in any order. Then I looked back at FSG's alternatives that they had proposed. And one of the things from the last meeting that I took from it was that there wasn't much of a taste for a 20-year bond. Having said that, I focused on a 10-year bond options. And from FSG's report, alternate 2 proposed an increase to $88.25 annually with a 10-year bond to construct 4 jobs, purchase trucks and an excavator to support a second crew, and support county inspector. And I guess that's pretty much it.
I'm sorry, can the screen be zoomed in on so that it's larger for the viewing public? A little bit. There we go. Thank you. Perfect. Thanks.
Scroll up, Connie. There you go. Just hold it there. That was $88 annually, 10-year bond, 4 projects, and support for a second stormwater crew and an inspector. Alternate 3, again, this is referenced from the FSG report, was a suggested increase of $75.77 annually, 10-year bond, 3 projects, purchase trucks for supporting a second stormwater crew with an inspector. And the fourth option that I pulled from the report is 6171 annually, 10-year bond with 1 or 2 jobs bonded for, and trucks, excavator for a second crew, and an inspector. We can go back and discuss any of the other options, but these seem to be the 3 that most closely followed our conversation last week, as I've noted above it.
All right, thank you. Is there any discussion of this from the board?
I have a question, not much of a discussion. Thanks, Terry. You summarized that greatly. Dave, this is kind of my observation from what you were saying throughout this process is, since we already set a rate at the 75, 77, we can't increase that. So unless we set a new rate, establish a new hearing, ultimately the alternative 2 is not really in our purview today.
That's probably correct. That would be my opinion.
So thanks for raising that, Tron. I think you're absolutely right. So we have options, alternates 3 and 4, or 0. I guess is the other option to consider.
Or scheduling a new hearing.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else from the board?
We do have more options, not saying let's go outside of what's here, but we can reduce it to any amount, but we should stay within these alternatives, just to kind of clarify.
This is true. Yes, this is true. It's just based on what's on the screen, I guess is what yeah. Thank you.
Carrie, I have a question. I thought it was fairly well established that a site construction inspector would be paid for through fees and wouldn't actually need to be a part of a bond.
That's something that I've proposed, but I've not had any direction on that, or direction to hire the people. And I know the commissioners are very aware of bringing on people now with the economy as it is. So should go into the conversation, but I've not done anything.
Yeah, and I think some of this has to do with planning to a certain extent, yes, because we asked them for input on some suggested rates, or you were going to look at suggested rates?
I looked at I did look at some suggested rates, and I looked at Hendricks County and Boone County. I feel like they're both similar to Monroe County, and I was seeing rates of I think going to be perceived as high inspector rates. I'm thinking review rates. I can't make that correlation. I would expect something on the order of the inspector's salary plus 1.5 or something like that for an overhead factor.
Sorry, Carrie, my connection is unusually bad and I didn't catch most of what you said just then.
I was kind of backing off on what I started to say. I was thinking about project reviews and charging a fee for that. I would say if you retained an inspector at 40,000, I'm just going to throw that out, and you had a markup of maybe 1.5, it would be maybe 60,000 a year, and I'm sure we could keep him busy full time. So you'd be thinking, what is that, an hour, 60,000 at
It's roughly
2,000 an hour.
$30 an hour.
Okay. No, that's, you ought to be thinking in that range. I would say 30 to 40 or so.
Thank you.
How much what kind of fees would need to be charged to generate that? Because we'd like to have that covered by the fees, right?
The inspector's fees. I
Yes.
think what we would do is set up a program of what we would anticipate as standard trips to a job site. And I'm gonna discuss stormwater because that's what's in my mind. I would expect an inspection site or an inspection to the site at rough grade, possibly even before the construction starts, during the erosion control, the SWIP installation. So there's, say, an hour and a half, rough grades an hour and a half. Storm sewers is another going to be in, I'll say, a couple hours, because you'll want to go out a couple times. And finish grade is an hour. So what am I at now? 1.5, 3, 6. And then we'd want to close out inspection. So I'd say 6 to 8 hours total at $30 an hour,
Right,
maybe
but-
250 or so.
Right, there's also the time to review plans, which isn't included here. And I think the idea would be, I need to see if I'm wrong about this, but I'd like to hear from my colleagues. I think the idea would be to have a really low minimal fee assessed for a single residence, but then to escalate that cost based on the size of a project. And we could go by acreage or the number of buildings or what, I don't know what it might be, but some in some way that would happen. Now, I don't foresee, I think it's important to know what the costs are, but at the same time, I would say that we typically look at it, we apply it, and we don't necessarily say 100% of the cost of this position is going to be covered by, because you can't know that. You can't know if you're going to have a really busy permitting year or a slow permitting year. We have that issue in planning all the time because we have set rates and set fees. So those are just my ideas. I just want to see what others thought rather than trying to go through the math here. I just wanted to see if on principle, we're okay.
I absolutely agree with you there that this is probably going to be something that would supplement the cost for an inspector, not necessarily wash it out. And also that inspector might be able to do more outside of just one responsibility that serves the county's purposes. So those costs should be maybe, washed with the stormwater fee, versus permitting. But I do think we will find a good balance moving forward, and whatever we can do to help supplement the costs sounds like a great path. So that has been my take on the conversation as well.
In regard to your comment about the smaller jobs, like a single family residence and a permit fee, I've been pushing for individual site plans for single family residents so that we can get a plan to show individual lot grading, to eliminate some of these lot grading issues between neighbors. And I would think that inspections for an individual lot would be limited to maybe 2 trips. I see 1 trip out to make sure that the contractor's putting the footings in to set the grade of the house at an appropriate elevation, and then maybe a final to make sure that all the final grading is done and everything's grading properly. So that would be just a couple trips at maybe 2 hours, so it'd be much less.
Right. The idea is to really just make sure that that a new house is not going to impact the neighbors adversely. It's really just a way to make sure that we're keeping an eye on what's going on. So, yeah. So could we get a proposal in a month or so together about what the fees might be, and then could we get a proposal?
Yes, Kelsey and I could put something together, and I'd like to take this minute to get sidetracked and introduce Kelsey to you all.
Please.
She's, Julie's had the opportunity to meet her. Kelsey's attending the meeting. I don't know if she's got camera with her, but Kelsey Thetonia is the was the MS4 coordinator for the city. And she's come over to the county, and I think the county did well in recruiting her. She's jumping in with both feet, and I'm starting to hand things off already, and I must say it's nice. I think Kelsey will do a great job for you.
Thank you, Terry. It's nice to meet everyone.
Hi, Kelsey. Welcome on board.
Thank you.
We're very happy to have you.
Terry, I'm curious, when is your final meeting?
This is it.
No, you're here in February.
Nope, Kelsey's going to run the next one.
You will be there.
We'll see you. Okay.
I'll be muted.
You'll be there though.
I'll sign in, but I won't be doing anything.
I won't sign your retirement papers if you're not at the next Stormwater board meeting.
What a retirement papers.
Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
I'll be there.
I would like to welcome you aboard and say congratulations. And we had the privilege of meeting in ASSEM conference once, and I feel very fortunate for the county to have you on board. And Terry, well, if this is the last time you're going to be here officially running it, man, it's been a great trip up and down the road. So thank you.
Thank you
For your service.
I would like to make one plug for Kelsey. She's a much better speaker than I am. Right, Lisa?
We still appreciate your knowledge, definitely.
Thank you.
All right, back to the topic. Penny, Commissioner Gibbons, did you have any comments, questions to add about an inspector?
No, but I think it's the right direction to be moving in on many levels. I think it'll prevent problems going forward.
Yes, and I agree with Julie and Tron that we probably want to concentrate the fees less on single residence structures than on the bigger projects.
Kelsey and I will put something together for next month then.
Thank you. Is there any more discussion about this?
So are we looking for, just so I understand where we're at time-wise, are we looking for, since we're continuing this from the last meeting and we had public comment, are we looking for somebody to make a motion on a specific proposal for the stormwater fee?
That's my suggestion.
Okay.
I'm not promoting any of these three. All I was trying to do is throw some things out based on our last conversation, the last meeting.
Yeah. And I appreciate having this data, by the way, Terry. This is really good to have. Well, let's see what happens. I'm going to go ahead and put this on the table so we can have a discussion and public comment, and we'll see how this goes. I'm going to go ahead and move that we increase the stormwater rate to $75.77 annually based on need. And the date it goes into effect, Mr. Schilling, is at the May taxing cycle. Is that correct? Do I need to say that?
It could be made effectively upon approval by the council and the commissioners. And even if it goes into effect this month or next month, it wouldn't be
Okay.
collected until April. So
Yeah. Okay. So I will say that based on approval by Board of Commissioners and County Council.
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion of this?
Is that just opening it up for conversation or, okay.
Yeah, comments or questions?
I was going to go last, but I could go first. I came to pretty much observe and make a brief comment. So ultimately moving forward, we do need to make an increase to help support the department and move some of these projects forward. Moving forward, as we do this, I really just want to emphasize that we focus on public education and outreach, targeting K through 12 and property owners. Developing a program that landlords can get assistance from the county to help mitigate and or resolve stormwater issues, something similar to what the city had put in place. Something similar to what we do with the SWCD, but they have different restrictions or just, I think we could put a program better to help assist landowners. Also balancing water quality with water quantity, developing a GIS database to reflect stormwater infrastructure, both on private and public land, creating operational manuals to help homeowner associations, landlords, and homeowners to manage their responsibilities. Having maps and other analysis included in our monthly packets, and any other additional information that would help us in making informed decisions, like project documents and such. Ultimately, I think incremental growth is very important as we rationalize these extra fees to the citizens of Monroe County. And finally, I fully support Alternative 4, which allows us personnel growth within the department and the ability to move projects forward. And it allows us to reassess as we move forward so we don't go too far in one direction. Outside of that, I leave it up to my colleagues to really provide some more direction moving this fee increase forward.
Thank you, Mr. Enright Randolph. Commissioner Thomas, do you have any comments, questions?
Yes, I will unmute. I think that there's not a huge financial difference for a year of to cover $14. It's about $1 a month, which is the difference between Alternative 3 and 4. And then I would also say that we had a lot of great public comment at the last meeting, and it was really helpful to have because it turned out that most folks thought that this was a monthly fee. And so I feel like it's time to do this, but I think we just have to be committed to pursuing a rollout and a planning for the future, which will reflect a slower incremental increase in stormwater fees as necessary, but something that correlates the fees with the projects, right? We've got a project list, we've got a priority list, but we need to figure out how those two things mesh together and address this in small amounts more incrementally, so it's not as shocking for our residents. I would also say that the difference between 1 or 2 projects and 3 projects is pretty big. It can be very big, and it can be quite important. And that's just in the first go round here. There's going to be a longer term impact that will be positive. I think we really have to get a site construction inspector. I would be okay with alternate 4, just as an FYI. I just threw 3 out there because that's what's on our agenda and that's what we have and that's what we had proposed. And so I'm willing to consider a good argument for alternate 4. But I think we need to move forward with something. I don't want to not do something today. So I will see what my learned colleagues wish to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. Commissioner Givens, do you have any questions, comments?
Well, I wanted to get some clarification from Tron. A couple different times he said landlord, and I didn't know if he was mixing landlord and landowner. But I also really appreciated the fact that he's thought through all the things he wants to go in the package. So I really appreciate that. At this point, I am really in favor of alternate 3 because I think that it will prevent the need to spend money later on. And also the kind of bonding that we can do right now, the rates are extremely low. I mean, we haven't seen anything like this in decades. So this is an optimal time to move forward with some of these projects. And it puts people to work in our county.
I use the term property owner and landlord, I think, just to kind of have more plain language that might resonate with a broader scope of listeners, I guess. Because we definitely want homeowners assisted in matters, but maybe somebody owns a bunch of homes and rents it. So I wouldn't want to preclude them necessarily. Maybe they can't go through the same type of program. Obviously, a lot of that has to be worked out, but I meant to use both of those terms on purpose, just to have a better catch-all, I guess.
Okay, so you meant, yeah, both. Thank you. But like I said, I really did appreciate the fact that you had all these bullet points already organized for us. So that's quite nice.
Thomas?
Yeah, just to follow up on that, I mean, I think that the bullet points are helpful, but I also think that we already have an education program going. I don't know what the impact has been, and I feel like, yeah, we want to educate everybody. I just feel like getting these projects done is going to be impactful, and I think we should have a good conversation with our new MS4 operator. And this board and the folks at Public Works about what the priorities are for this funding. Because I don't necessarily agree with the order, and I'm not sure that those were in order, Tron, but I don't know that I necessarily agree with the order, but I do want to see us getting these projects done, and so does the public.
If I'm going to throw something in.
Julie?
Yeah, please do.
Regarding the public education, I want to toot Connie's horn here. She's got a very good program going. And at one point we were bringing her, the things she was doing to the board, and I've kind of gotten away from that because her agenda filled up with other things. But I think in response to Tron's comment and your question, we should be, I should get her back on the agenda and have her telling you all what she has going on, so you have a little better idea. She's been doing a really good job in my mind.
I want to jump in here just to clarify a bit. This isn't meant like for tomorrow. Increasing this fee becomes a fixed increase fee. So 5 years from now, 10 years from now, as we incrementally, grow these education outreach or programs to assist a broader scope of ratepayers. I I just want to say that, you know, for me to get behind that, I feel reassured that that is the direction that Stormwater has been taking and continue to take. So ultimately, I just want the public to know that's why I'm willing to support a fee increase, because I do think we will be able to grow on all those fronts. And so thank you. I hope that clarifies a bit.
It did. Thank you.
Mhm.
I'd just like to say that Ms. Griffin came to the Environmental Commission, which I'm a member of, and gave a presentation that was very helpful, very knowledgeable. And so I'm certainly aware of the fact that she's effective in what she's doing. I'm sorry, Ms. Ridge, did you have something to say?
You're fine. I just wanted to comment on Julie's statement about priorities. The way the list is written, I don't think it's necessarily written by priority. I think Terry was just kind of lump summing it. I know as for me, and I'm very outspoken, that inspector, for one, is a top priority, and the capital improvement projects to me is top priority, and the biggest reason for increasing this fee. As we've presented the numbers and everything from our long range plan and the 4 projects that we've taken on, as you can see, we can't build those without raising this fee. So to me, since we've spent them, or since the board has approved spending the money on the designs for these projects, starting to purchase right-of-way, you've shown the commitment to those projects, and to just throw them on a shelf, I don't think is a good answer. And I think if the fee is raised, and we can show these capital improvement projects getting done over the next 12, 24 months, however long it takes to get permits and everything, because the design is pretty well complete on most of them, then they'll see results. And I think that's probably one of the downfalls with stormwater. We haven't been able to tackle some of those bigger issues in the county and let people see what we can do with that stormwater fee. Basically, we've used it to get a department going, getting crews hired, and tackling what we can in-house. And that's never going to go away. Not saying that it's not priority, but these bigger capital improvement projects just can't be done in-house. We're not allowed to do a big project like that with this cost. So they all have to be contracted out. So that's that. I just wanted to kind of touch base on Julie's comment about priority of these items versus inspector projects, crews, things like that.
I had no intention of prioritizing the way I wrote them down. It was just, it's the way they came up.
My question was really for Tron, because Tron had a list. That's really.
Okay.
I certainly agree that we need to prioritize, I think, an inspector, because we need to start preventing these situations from coming about, or we'll never get a handle on all of it. And also, I think that generally taxpayers are going to expect to see us tackling these major projects if we do raise the fees. So I think that we definitely need to prioritize things like that. I think that I fall pretty much in favor of alternate 3. As Commissioner Thomas said, there's not a big difference between alternate 4 and alternate 3. And if alternate 3 allows us to consider more of these projects while we're still able to get them done without the prices going up too much more and without them needing to be re-engineered or anything, I agree, it would not make any sense to put any of this on the shelf at this point. So anyhow, is there any further board comment about this? Right.
I have one further comment, and it's just to, you know, put myself out there. Is I made a statement last time that I wouldn't support the 75, 77, and unfortunately I might not be able to support what I had said. this, what I've heard today has made me rethink that. So I just wanted to put that out there. So.
Thank you. Thank you. And if there's no further comment, we can move to public comment. Is there any public comment?
Madam President, someone came on video. I'm not sure if they're wanting to speak though.
Oh, I see.
I think it's Dawn.
Yes.
Hi, Dawn.
Hello.
Hello,
I
please
just-
go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted to say I fully support everything the board is talking about here in terms of an inspector for the future. An ounce of prevention is, I don't know how the saying goes, but I think that's a great move. Someone mentioned how cheap the bonds were, that they haven't been this low in decades. I'm wondering if we want to go to alternate 2. I mean, if it's that cheap, let's get them all done, and showing the public results is another important step. I think that's great. It really, really is a positive move. And if Lisa and her team are in charge of these projects, that's going to spell nothing but success. So I'm fully support this from my point of view. And if it's cheap as it is, what about alternate 2? Is it that out of the question? That way we can get all of our projects done, and that whoever doesn't get done with alternate 3 won't feel left out. Hopefully it's not me that would be left out. But that's all I had. But I really support everything that you're saying, and I think it's a great idea. Planning for the future is such a critical move. So I fully support everything.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Schilling, would you like to review what the problem is with considering alternate 2?
Well, we had just advertised it for a hearing on the 75, 77. And the notion is that some people might not have objected to that and didn't show up to the hearing, but they would have objected to an 88.25 amount. And so they would never have had a chance to express that opinion. But so that's just sort of a matter of fairness, I think.
Okay, thank you. And of course, the motion we have on the floor right now is for the 75, 77. Is there any further public? Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Thomas.
Yeah, I just want to say really quickly, sorry, that maybe this is giving somebody an opportunity to go ahead and raise their hand on Zoom. But we do still have 2 bodies that will have public comment on this. And so we may end up coming back and having to look at a different amount. But I think it's a lot to delay right now and going with the higher amount. But I appreciate the good faith sentiment expressed by the public that we have a lot of projects, recognizing we have a lot of projects, and that this is a group that will do them well. So thank you for that.
All right, thank you. And is there any further public comment? Hands raised at this time. Oh, Mr. Grove.
Did you call on me?
I'm sorry. Oh, maybe your hand is still raised from before.
No, I raised it again because I had a question. About the
Yes.
2 more boards it has to go through, assuming whatever alternative you choose today, then it has to go through 2 more boards. What is the timeline on that? Is that like next month they'll go to the next board and then the following month, or what kind of timeline is that for the next levels of approval? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Mr. Schilling, can you fill fill us in on that? I'm not sure. Does it come first to the commissioners and then to the council for the appropriation? Or for the, not appropriation?
Yeah, I don't believe that there's any order, any specific order required. It could go to the commissioners next week and then the council at their, I think they have a meeting on the 25th or 26th and then maybe the 9th of next month. So it basically just how soon we can get it on agendas.
Yeah, we have advertising deadlines to meet for the hearing, right?
Yeah, I don't, there's, if you've approved alternate, one of the alternates, 2 or 4, you don't need to have any additional hearings. And it's not required to have a hearing before the council or the commissioners. So it'd just be a regular agenda item.
Okay.
Thank you. So I suppose that in theory, we could finish up with this in about a month, depending somewhat on schedules.
I guess I have one comment to follow up with that. And with the policy, does that need to go through here? I know that council doesn't have anything. So would we have to amend the policy? And then I'm sure that can make it to the commissioner's desk pretty quickly. That still might fall within that month, but I think we have one other administrative part of this to amend the local policy.
What policy are you referring to?
I'm not 100% if it even comes to this board. From our last discussion, we had it on here, the local policy that kept us from increasing the fee. It had it set at a 3% increase per year. So that's still out there. I just want to make sure that we amend that as well.
Yeah, there's the ordinance that will need to be amended after the new rate is approved. And those ordinance amendments can take out that 3% limitation that was initially established when the fee was created.
So do you think that would mess up the timeline that was just kind of discussed?
No. I mean, it could all be done within a month.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure we were checking all of our bases. Thank you.
Thanks.
I do not see any other hands raised. I did need to comment earlier that the situation of having gone for so long without an increase, I experienced something similar when I worked in utilities at the city, where they had gone for a long time without increasing their fees at all. And it was painful and came as quite a shock when it finally had to happen. So I really recommend that we try to stay on top of this and not let it go a long time again.
Lee, may I interject something here?
Yes.
From last month, I received 2 additional comment letters that are in the agenda. I want to make sure that they're recognized and they were on the agenda and the board has seen them.
Yes, I certainly saw them. I expect the rest of the board did. All right, then if there are no further comments, I believe we're ready for a vote.
I'm sorry, this is Todd Schnetzmeyer. I do have one comment.
Yes, please.
If I can interject, I couldn't find raise hand, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Dave had talked about removing the 3% maximum increase. Is that a one-time note for this motion, or is that to be incorporated in perpetuity? Because that keeps control over this fee getting out of hand quickly. That was the whole, motivation behind that 3%. I think it's important to maintain that 3% with, this exception. I think that's important to note.
Yes. Mr. Schulman?
Yes. What,
I'm
Yes.
sorry.
did you want me to respond to a question?
Yes, I was hoping you would.
Well, the 3% was put on there originally, and that was ages ago. And that was just to, I think it was done just to create some limitation until the county could gain experience. And since that time, it hasn't been increased since it's been established. And so anytime you increase it, you have to justify it based on the circumstances that exist at the time. It has to be, a reasonable fee based on what you can show that you need to accomplish. So putting the 3% limitation on, I just, it could tie the hands of the board to some extent, but the commissioners would always have the opportunity, even if it were in place, to undo it at any time. So I don't know how valuable it is. And I think that, the notion is that you just rely on the reasonableness of the board and to respond to the needs that exist. So.
I think it raises an interesting point, and I think it's something we can look at when we create that new legislation. So maybe that's something we should think about and figure out a way around it. If there's a way to start, create that, create a percentage, but start the clock in 2022 or something. So there's got to be some way around this where the public can be assured that this is not going to be a regular event of such magnitude. But at the same time, I think it's really difficult to do small incremental changes every year because it has taken up 2 meetings here. And it's disruptive to the workflow of the department. That's not to say that we should do what we've done now, which is to wait 8 years and do this either. I think there's a happy medium in there. And so maybe there's something that we could work on to try to address the great point made by the public, but also to not make it so inhibiting that it's impossible to follow.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a good point. All right, I believe we're ready for a vote now. Mr. Quillman, if you call the roll.
I still have to unmute it. Julie Thomas,
Yes.
Lee Jones,
Yes.
Tron Enright Randolph.
I'll just say this is one of the hardest decisions I have made as a public servant to Monroe County. So I'm going to support this and say yes.
And Penny Givens.
Yes.
It's been approved. Alternate 3 has been approved 4-0.
Our next item of business is the ordinance to amend Chapter 766, the Stormwater System Feeding Fund. We've already had some discussion of that. Or is that actually what we just did? No.
We're moving to new business.
Oh, all right. Sorry. Our next item is the Stormwater Expenditure Report for December 2020.
Turn to page 18, Connie. Okay, first I sent everyone an amended agenda. I had put in an entry into the 30s category that I had put the wrong account to it, so I removed it. That's good there. Payroll stuff that's just above the screen, it's locked in, stays the same. Office supply, field crew supplies, fleet maintenance, seed, mulch and plantings. I think Jason bought up some matting before the end of the year. And all of those charges are pretty small. I go on down to the 30s categories. The only significant one there I see is, well, there's Cherry Lane in there. We put in some pipe as a part of a project that I'm going to finish next year. There's 6,900 on pipe there. And, excuse me, that's the total. We rented a large excavator to install the pipe. They're large box culverts. I think they were like 3 by 6 or 7 feet. And we put them under 2 drives and we'll finish it next year. Stip Road, Moores Creek, that's a $2,500 charge toward the permitting. And I have no additional word on the status of the permitting. I just keep asking about that. And 40s, that's it. Just scroll on down, Connie. And then we've got the year-end percentages. And Jim Faber would ask me why that's always high. Well, it's because I didn't have some encumbered fees or money from last year on here. When I've got that added now, we're running at about 67%, including encumbered fees. And if there's any questions, I would like to say up there in the garage construction, that's the BMP that we had to put in for IDEM. That's now complete. I went ahead and paid for the retainage on that and signed off on it. So Baby Creek and Stip and Moores Creek are out there. Baby Creek, they're purchasing right away now, and it's going much smoother than I thought. That's going well. And Stip Road and Moores Creek Road, if you remember, those are both entirely on Corps of Engineers property, so there's no right-of-way purchase there. So as soon as I can get through the Corps' permitting process, get them to respond, basically, that will be ready for construction also, both jobs. Is there any questions regarding any of it? If not, we can go on down to the next item.
Something we use to plan,
These are the comment letters I was speaking earlier. Just wanted to make sure everybody knew they were there, and I've addressed them.
There are 2 roads that are comparable, and we can get the fight for roadway.
And the Monroe County Soil and Water District MOU for 2021.
Yes, this is the new MOU for next year. Lisa had some conversations with Martha, and Lisa can speak to it a little better than I can, but she's worked through the details with Soil and Water Conservation and made edits to the agreement. And I believe at the bottom, if you'll look, Connie, the Soil and Water Conservation Board has signed off on it. So this I'll be looking for approval from the board.
And let me note, the only change that Martha had requested was basically the timing of the quarterly reports, just to have a better timing on those. And I didn't think the board would have an issue with that. So we made those changes to the agreement.
Yeah, it makes sense. Do we need a vote on this, right? To approve
Yes.
the memorandum of understanding?
The 2 flares connected.
I'll make a motion that we go ahead and approve the memorandum of understanding with the Soil and Water Conservation District.
I'll second.
Right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion of this?
Just, I guess, to address Lisa's one change, everything is the same except that one change. And then I guess grant applicants will be limited to one grant awarded every 3 years.
I believe
Maybe
we had that. I think we had that in there last year.
Yeah, we tweaked it a couple times, so maybe it just jumps out a little bit more this time. But I was just going to say I really like that. Unless we don't get participants, and then I think we really want to ask Martha if this has driven down the numbers, because we don't want to, hinder anyone. We just want to make sure we give more of an opportunity for people to participate. So I would just ask if we stay a little close in contact with Martha to make sure that this is kind of offering more opportunity and not limiting people, and
I think
it's
that's
meeting our intent. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and I think that's a good thing that we can raise at the quarterly reporting time. Because she usually comes to the meeting to offer the information, so.
Right, any further discussion? And is there any public comment?
And I think it has been approved. I don't know if we mentioned it. It was approved at the Soil and Water Board. So they were in total support of this agreement also. Sorry, I forgot that comment.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't see any hands raised. So seeing no public comment, I'll come back to the board. If there's no further discussion.
I would just like to thank, I just want to thank Martha. She has really heeded some of our advice, and it was really neat working with some of the interactive components she put together as far as having a map where these are happening. We were able to click on the points and see pictures. I think she's doing a fabulous job of addressing those concerns of ours, and I just wanted to thank her for her efforts.
Yes, I think we all agree. She does an amazing job with a relatively small budget. All right, Mr. Quillman, would you please call the roll?
I will. Julie Thomas,
Yes.
Lee Jones,
Yes.
Tron Enright Randolph,
Yes.
and Penny Givens.
Yes.
It's approved 4-0.
Okay. If there's no further discussion.
Yeah, we can barely hear you,
Oh,
Commissioner Jones.
sorry, there's a lot of background noise also. If there's no further discussion from any of the commissioners, we can be adjourned.
So moved.
All right, thank you.